Hi guys, David Healy here. I'd like to introduce you to our latest sample library. It's a collaboration between my company Xtant Audio and Strezov Sampling. It's going to be available from Strezov Sampling's website. The link should be on your screen round about now. And it's an electric violin library. It's the Westphalen electric violin with samples recorded by Gerhard Westphalen. The graphic design of the beautiful GUI was done by Coke Gomez. So let's get right in. I'm just going to walk you through this instrument and show you how to use it, how the controls work, and give you a little demo of how it sounds. So it's pretty straightforward, nothing too fancy. We've got the blue keys down here. That's the playable range of the instrument from this G to this G. Over at this end of the keyboard we have these pink keys, and they are for key switches. We've got sustain, legato, staccato, and you can see as I click on these, the buttons above highlight to indicate which articulation you've selected. You can also choose your articulation by clicking on these, and if you're using the UACC, which was developed by Spitfire Audio, it's a standard for selecting articulations using a CC, a continuous controller, rather than clicking buttons or key switches. That also works with this instrument. It responds to the UACC. So let's have a listen to how it sounds. Now I am a pianist more than a violinist, so this will sound like a piano player playing a violin, but you'll get the idea hopefully. So we'll have a look at the sustain first. Now the sustain samples, well, I just press the G here, and now if I go to legato, you'll hear it sounds pretty much the same. It is triggering round robin, so it will be slightly different. But the sustain and the legato, the only real difference is the sustain you can play polyphonic, and the legato is monophonic, and when you play a fingered legato where you slightly overlap the notes, you'll get a nice transition in between. Okay. Now I'm going to be controlling the dynamics using a Tech Control breath controller, so I'm going to blow into that now and you'll see the mod wheel on the screen move. And I'm going to control the vibrato. You can see the vibrato slider on the screen there, the depth slider. I'm going to control that with an expression pedal. The vibrato rate I'm not going to touch for the moment, but I'll be moving that around with the mouse later. And we'll look at all these other controls after we've been through the articulation. So this is the sustain. Just to give you an idea, I'm going to play with the vibrato depth and the dynamics, and then we'll move on to the other articulations. I generally use this instrument in the legato mode all the time. The only time I'd go to sustain is if I'm wanting to do double stops or something that needs me to be able to play two notes at the same time. But generally I stay in the legato mode because you get a smoother sound. I probably went a bit overboard on the vibrato there, but it gives you an idea of what the instrument's like. So let's move on to the staccato. Now the staccato has its dynamics controlled by velocity rather than the mod wheel. So It's just like this. Just exactly what you'd expect. And like the sustain, you can play multiple notes at the same time. Okay, let's have a look at the other controls on the interface. So we've looked at the articulations. We've got the mod wheel, which is the dynamics. That's CC1. The pitch bend is actually functional. You probably wouldn't be wanting to use that too much because it sounds quite artificial, but we left it in there because it's a kind of standard thing. You've got CC21 is controlling the vibrato depth, and CC22, which I don't have hooked up at the moment, that's controlling the rate. You can also right click on these controls and learn the Midi automation. So I should be able to hook this up to the mod wheel if I do that. Sorry, not the mod wheel, the expression pedal. So now I've got that controlling the rate and the depth. And I'll just remove that again. And that's the same for all these controls. You can set it up for Midi automation. Okay, so the vibrato rate does exactly what you'd expect it to do. It increases the rate. It can get quite, a bit unrealistic at the very top. So you'd probably use that more for effects and things. But I'll put the vibrato depth right up, and I'm just going to slowly increase the rate so you can hear what it sounds like. I'm also going to turn the dynamics up a bit. So I'll just do it on a single note. You can probably tell also by the length of time that I was holding that sample down that the samples are looped, so they'll sustain indefinitely until you release the key. And there are release samples in there as well, so as you release you'll get a realistic release tone. Let's have a listen to the instrument. I'm going to put it back in legato mode. Let's have a listen without the reverb, just so you can hear it in its sort of raw form. I always think that shows off an instrument a bit better than masking it with the reverb. So this is just a wet dry knob for it's a convolution reverb, the built-in one inside Contact, and we've loaded in a cathedral type impulse. So I'm going to turn it right down and I'll just play around, give you an idea. Okay, so you can hear it. I think it sounds much nicer with the reverb, helps bring out the tone. The default, if you just hold control and click on the knob, it always returns to the default. I think it's a bit too wet sometimes, so maybe turn it down a little bit. Over here we've got a 3-band EQ, it's just a standard kind of thing, so you've got your bass, your mid-range and your high range, but it doesn't have to be because all three of these knobs will go through the full frequency range from 20 Hz to 20 kHz. If you hold control and click, it will reset them to their default values. The middle column is the bandwidth and the last column is the gain, so you can boost or cut the frequency. So let's just boost the bass so you can hear what it sounds like. I'm going to hold shift while I move this knob because then you get a finer control over it, whereas if you just do it without holding shift you don't get as much precision. It moves in larger increments. Okay, let's reset that. So we'll have a quick look at the round robin. I'm going to put it in staccato mode for this. So if I play a few notes, and I'm going to turn the round robin off now. So you can hear it's identical every time. And with the round robin on, it's slightly varied. And this is a true sampled round robin. It's not note borrowing or anything like that. These are different samples every time. Okay, let's have a look at this menu over here. This is the presets menu. So what we put in here is some settings that are kind of typical of what composers use when they're writing for the electric violin. So we've got the default, which is just the Westphalen. Behind the scenes, this is controlling an EQ, and some of the presets are controlling the reverb and a flanger and phaser and cabinet simulator. So there's other things going on behind the scenes, but for our purposes, all we need to do is go to the menu and choose a preset. This EQ over here is not affected by the presets in that this EQ sits on top of them so that you can tweak the presets equalization to your taste. So we'll go down for the first one. It's the Paradiso. I'm just going to play the Westphalen and then switch so that you can hear the difference. So a little brighter, less of the low frequencies. Okay, we'll move on to the Topanga Sun. You can see that once I've selected that from the menu, this phaser and flanger, these controls appear on the interface, so you can tweak the phaser and the flanger from these default settings. So you'll probably hear a phasing effect now when I play. I'm going to turn the instrument down a bit. It's a little loud with this preset. Again, just holding shift there to get finer control. So you can probably hear those effects in there. I'm just going to turn the flanger right up as I play so you can hear kind of the extreme end of that effect. It also can be combined with the vibrato rate and you can get some really weird things going on. So it's not really to my taste, but you might enjoy playing around with the more extreme end of those effects. Okay, let's move on to the Wunderland preset. Now, just to say, I am kind of sticking around this low end of the range, sort of this G to C, and the reason for that is it's kind of subconscious, but I find this is the meat range of the instrument. You get a really nice warm tone out of it. Up here it tends to get a bit kind of scratchy, especially at the higher dynamics. So I like to sort of stick low down, but I mean it's perfectly usable. The other thing I should mention is this legato articulation responds to your playing speed. So if you play really fast passages, it will take that into account and you get a slightly shorter interval. And then if you play a slower passage, you'll get the full length of the interval. Well, depending on how slow you play. So I'll just demonstrate that. Kind of went a bit sort of Eastern there. Not intentional, but that's what happens when you go over to the pentatonic scale. Let's move on to the last preset. So this one's much brighter than the others, and it's kind of got more power behind it. I think it's the EQ or the cabinet or something is giving it more of a boost, but it's a nice warm sound. Very powerful, stands out. So I think that about sums it up for this video. I think we've covered everything, there's nothing else I need to explain. The library is available at Strezov Sampling, the link's on your screen now. I hope you get lots of use out of this library and can use it to enhance your music and your compositions, and I look forward to hearing it being used in all kinds of brilliant pieces of music. Thank you for your support and for joining me for this video, and I will see you again next time.